Okay, so are we live? We're rolling? Okay, cool. Welcome to the most awkward Zoom call ever. Neat. Right. So, first of all, to everybody watching, hi, my name is Sophie. I'm a final year student here at UOWM KDU, and I'm a student of game development. And today we are, yeah,
Wow.
everyone's got like their swag except for me. You know my swag, not my story. Okay, so today we are doing interviews with different batches of lecturers based on the different project semesters that we have. And the first project semester that students will encounter is GPS 1. So this is basically the students' first taste of making a game with each other. And there's all these criteria and it's supposed to emulate like the real game making environment. It's known for being maybe a little rough for the students because it's their first time doing this kind of thing. Technically, it is the first time the students are working together since their first semester. So it's like everybody's character has kind of evolved a little bit since then. So with me here today are three of the lecturers that serve as mentors and supervisors during the GPS 1 period. So can you each please introduce yourselves? And yeah, pretty much. We'll start with Mr. Boon. Yay! And next, Mr. Johann.
Okay, hi, I'm Johann Lim. I teach GPS 1, Game Genre Studies 1 and 2, Game Level Design. Used to have more stuff, but I've put that away now. Sorry, what else am I supposed to say?
What did you do before you started teaching at KDU?
Oh, okay. The most recent and most relevant one, just before I was in KDU, I was in E1 Studio, which is a game development studio. I was there for 3.5 years, and we made Hoodwink, which released on EA Origins for a while, and we also did Split, an iOS game which was on the App Store.
What year were those games released actually?
That is a tough question.
Roughly, like when did it hit the
2011, 2012.
Okay, so it
something
at
like
least is younger than our youngest students, so that's fine.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes. Yes, Sophie, you're right. It's been a while.
All right. And finally, Miss Nabs.
Is Nabilah. I'm a lecturer for the game arts. So I teach mainly digital imaging, so Photoshop. I also teach project past GPS 1. These guys, yay! I also teach 2D game art development. So in 2D game art development, we do like a little mini mock-up of a game students want to make. So that's one of the fun projects for art students currently, I hope. So yeah. Before I came to KU, I was a lecturer for a year, local university as well, for a year, and then I jumped into studio work, which I did production design for background. Yeah, that was for a year until I joined KDU. After that, for I think this is my 5th year. Oh my gosh, 5th year! Yay!
Just to clarify, at the previous university that you taught at, were you also doing games or were you doing animation?
Yeah, sorry, I was also doing games. Similar to lecture for you, I guess, in terms of subjects. But then, I think KDU has one of the best facilities and lectures and programs that can be offered in Southeast Asia, maybe, and Malaysia especially.
I love the plug. I love the skills. Okay, so now that everybody's been introduced, all you need to know about me is that I'm an FYP student and my game is Don't Stop the Party. You can currently play it in our Discord server. If you haven't registered for the server, please do. And please check out the game. We worked very hard. We've been bug fixing up until like an hour ago. Yeah. Anyway, so I love video games. Right.
Video games.
I love games. How's it gaming gamers? All right. So in GPS 1, one of the biggest things about it is that there's specific criteria that goes into it. Like you decide on themes for art, tech, and design. How do you decide on these themes?
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe, you want to go first?
You can do it for each stream, I guess, because I'm not sure how yeah, that's it. That's why we're asking the questions. I'm not sure how interlaced like these themes are, because it's like our current GPS 1 batch. They were given the theme of Peranakan, which is really interesting. That now we're starting to focus more on like local culture and all of that. But then also it was different for my batch when we were given the theme of Monty Python. So yeah, like so, how did you guys decide on these like themes?
Nabila, you started to say something.
No, I'm going to talk about more on the art side. So for the art part, we went with I think normally we went with we'll go with three different art genres, but then we maybe differently, not just by drawing, but also maybe a little bit of photo manipulation and see how the students will actually adapt to the norm. Because in art game especially, you have cell shaded, you have vector art, you have maybe 3D rendered to 2D and then make into a game asset. But then what about photo manipulation kind of take to it? So it gives off the surrealist effect maybe. Yeah, that's what one of the reasons why I put like photo manipulation into making game arts. I like to experiment with students how they actually come up with concepts, how they actually use images to make assets, especially on characters. Difficult, but they managed to actually come up with amazing assets and animation using photo manipulation. So that's actually quite for 2 semesters, I think. So that was actually quite an improvement to see. So very well done. As for links between Peranakan and photo manipulation, we didn't really think that it will be a link, but how would they actually use these techniques and make it and implement it into the game to make it work kind of thing. So it's like it's quite amazing results actually. So yeah, that is why we decided or I decided to go with um, one of themes for the game art.
So wait, was it like deciding on the art themes? Was it completely your decision, or did you have outside input from other lecturers, even the non-art lecturers? You know?
We do have inputs like should we go with this, should we go with that, should we just let them try kind of thing. So it's like a mutual decision between the three of us and lecturers from I think we also do have other lecturers sometimes. So yeah, it was a mutual decision. So like yeah, let's try and do it for another semester and see what kind of result, so it's really it's actually very impressive to see one semester doing a different style, but they actually like managed to do it like, and then another semester you have a different set of styles as well. So that's really a very good improvement actually. Yeah, it's a very good result.
Okay, I mean, like I'm sufficiently impressed, honestly, with the GPS 1 batch because
Yes.
they don't come across like student games, if that makes sense. They
Yeah.
definitely look like indie games. Like I'd see this on the front page of Itch or like Steam Greenlight back when that was a thing. And I probably ignore it because, I'm like, oh, where's the big budget stuff? But I mean, it would catch my eye for a second, Mr. Johann, what about you for the design themes?
Design wise, we generally sort of just throw things out there and see what sticks and sounds interesting. Everything design, right? But actually, what I'd like to do is talk a bit more about the history, a bit of how it evolved. So, I mean, for example, this semester's one, they have day and night cycle, one versus many, and all becomes new. And some of it was taken from like previous semester because no one did a good attempt with it. Sometimes we carry things forward. The day night cycle actually evolved from a tech thing, if I remember correctly. It
Yeah.
used to be a tech restriction, a
Yeah.
theme, sorry. And in the few times people implemented it, it's sort of like, it's not just tech, it needs to get into the design side. So we thought we'll move it over to design. But Did they do much with it this semester? I don't think they did in the end.
No, they don't. They didn't really touch the day-night one.
Yeah, so I shouldn't say this, but we're likely going to carry it forward next semester.
GPS 1 next
The
semester.
next GPS one, yeah.
The
So they have
leaks are here. Spoilers.
yeah. See, that's what you come to this show for. Apparently. But yeah. Okay. What I was writing down was this. So why did we do theme? I don't know whether you noticed, but before your time, maybe one or two before you, there were teams before that, and the reason
My
is
batch was
because
the first one to get
oh,
it, right?
it was. Is it?
Yeah.
I check directly, but then this sheet takes a while to load, and I'm talking right now, so
All right.
I don't know how. Yeah,
Uh-oh.
restrictions breed creativity. Mark Rosewater. Okay, that's terribly written. Sorry. And so coming from that belief where you have restrictions, then you can be creative because then you have a box to think out of, or you have constraints to work with, work against, and create something within a certain parameters, and that's where people get do. Before that, some semesters weren't had ideas that weren't so interesting, and then sometimes we talk to them and like, okay, maybe try this or try that, or try not to do this, and then things get more interesting. So we thought we'd just carry that forward. How about we just start off with restrictions? Also emulating a real studio experience, which people will come and tell you, okay, 100 plus has come to us and they want a sports team thing, and it must have people drinking the drink. So you're already working restrictions.
Right.
Yeah. And if you've tried anything creative, it's sort of like, oh, okay, go do whatever you want, make a game, write a script, go draw something. You're like, what? So often having that little bit of direction helps a lot. So in terms of the general theme, like your Monty Python or this semester's Peranakan, that has helped games have that. And then in terms of the like art theme, design theme, tech themes, that help us sort of give the direction in that specific field, like a thing to head for, rather than I don't know anything. Make it fun, make it work, make it pretty.
Thing is like you present your idea and then your lecturer is like, but is it fun though? And you can't honestly answer because it's subjective.
It's also subjective. It's pretty well, if you look at it this way. Yeah. And you briefly mentioned, I'm sorry, guys. You briefly
Interesting.
mentioned,
I'm getting all the lore for my previous sems too, so this is fun.
Backstory
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Five
See,
episodes in.
I apologize to these guys because they're like, oh, with you every semester we know the whole thing. Whereas
Do
for
you
every semester,
really know?
everyone's really excited. It's like, oh, really? Is that what happened? And we're like, but we've been directing the thing more Malaysian lately. I think it started on Monty Python, which is we thought was a good laugh. I think I can't remember anymore. But
Nobody knew what Monty Python was. I had to crash chorus in the group chat, and I was like, the one I'm the most familiar with is the Holy Grail, and then everybody did King Arthur.
yeah. Okay, so I just decided to look through this. Okay, our themes are all over the place. Come to think of it. So I'm just gonna read off some past themes. The previous one was Brothers Grimm.
Okay, yeah.
Before that was local fairy tales, not horror. And then we had Dr. Seuss, Zeus, and then it was Monty Python. So that was you.
Your sauce.
Yeah, and before that was something more vague. It was modernized arcade. So that was our first foray into this almost 2 years ago. Modernized arcade, and that sort of like, hey, that
It's modernized arcade. That's so like
could be anything.
like yeah, it's very like, is this art? Like all right.
Yeah, so Monty Python, I can't remember how that came about. And then the other stuff became more clear cut, right?
I think Monty Python because we wanted to time with the Halloween theme. I think, or was it? I can't remember. It was
No,
Brothers Grimm.
I'm pretty sure the Monty Python came from the fact that Netflix suddenly released all the Monty Python movies.
So
And
it
they were
was
like, hey,
actually
yeah.
a unpaid
Monty
tie-in.
Python.
It was like a sponsored thing, but
Yeah.
not really.
I mean, we all saw
man,
it,
it's
and
so
I was like, oh, hey, these students might not know what Monty Python is.
Yeah.
Might as well.
yeah, one of the best things in my life. So yeah, I would personally, and I would like to drive the themes more local, or at least regional. I'm still like agenda of sort of driving a local sort of.
Call it an agenda. I call it a vendetta, but that's just for me. So I will Malaysianize everything I see. So like I completely understand.
I would, but I'm more. Let's make it regional, get more support because this region has fascinating cultures and fascinating stuff going on and a lot of creativity, but it's just what direction do we go? And a lot of people go, oh, the only thing we know is either the Western, the knights and whatever hantus of Western style, or you have only the two really big Eastern strongholds of lore and story background stuff. It's either China stuff, which is Journey to the West and Three Kingdoms, or it's Japanese stuff, which is everything in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
So we should do. I think our region should do our own version because we have the best hantus in the world. Like for
Right.
example,
We have
right?
the best others in the world.
Oh man,
Oh,
our black
interesting.
magic.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I will stop for someone else. Boon Lim?
Okay, so Mr. Boon, about the tech themes.
The tech ones were basically brought down from the predecessors. We all started with art, tech, and design all having our separate teams. That's basically like a general direction for the students to have an idea of how to make or have better idea on generating a game, what that game would look like and how it will play. So a lot of it is still just that, especially on the tech side, which is why recently or at least I've been trying to look into instead of doing more systems, have more mechanics that are more genre based. So like I think a few that we were discussing last semester was like dialogue systems, inventory systems to kind of it helps with kind of specifying a form of genre from the mechanics, but at the same time still not being specific enough where they have to use a particular genre to have those mechanics.
Mentors and supervise.
A form of genre from the Nabilah, your mic.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So generally that's it for the tech teams. We're still, or at least I'm still trying to look and experiment with what can be introduced to the text without making them panic. Because at this point in time, for GPS one at least, they haven't actually had experience with the game engine. So asking them to do very particular systems with very complicated ways of setting up actually makes them really, really panic.
Makes them really, really panic.
Yeah.
I
I still remember though, like even though we have these restrictions, there are still few batches who are like, I've never made a game before. This is my first time using this engine. I want to make a network multiplayer game. I'm like, oh wow, ambitious. Please do try.
I mean,
yeah.
like, one of the best things about GPS one is it really tests your willingness to be ambitious in the first place.
Yeah.
There were students who were like, we're gonna make this really teeny tiny game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna be like push a block and win.
Mm-hmm.
But and then you have the other ones that are like, we're gonna make Shadows of Mordor, but in stencil. It's like it really tests like your ambition and your willingness to go far and like how much you're willing to experiment. I think that's really interesting because GPS one kind of sets the tone for every other project semester that you go into. Like then it's like how much are you going to try like further on, right? So now my question is, the three of you monitor the progress of the students on a weekly basis for the course of one semester, and you're basically watching like several teams or solos make a game for the first time. What are some I guess like notable things that almost always happen, like in a pattern almost? Like maybe you have the teams that sort of they peak early and then there's like this downfall, but then they produce like something really really good at the end, but you know it was hard. Or you have like the teams that have very steady development, or you have the teams that panic every week during presentations. you know so like what are some of the patterns that you've seen during development? We can start with Miss Nabs.
Sorry, guys. I need to grab my battery for this. Give me a minute, yeah? I charge
No
it.
worries.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think the most notable one that we can actually agree on, I don't know, I think we can actually agree on is that suddenly, like after maybe POC or vertical slice, and you see this tremendous amount of improvements, like, whoa, where did this come from? So like, they have it in them. I'm very happy. So and then after that, after a while, like weekly, you'll see like more progresses and more improvements, and we're like, started slow, but this is good. This is good improvements. These are good. These are some of the good things that these guys have put a lot of effort into. So I think it was. I think for me at least, that is one of the most notable things that could happen. Like you'll be seeing them struggling at first, like, oh, what's our art, how's our art, is it okay, are we going for this? So you'll see like a lot of and after that you see changes, and no, you can't do changes, just do improvements. And then after that they use that advice and then they just improve it, and then after that, like weekly, you'll see like more like good art. It's like, oh, I'm impressed. I'm very, very impressed. And this is like normally after like vertical slice, and then you'll see like a lot of these things happening. So that's like for me like one of the best things that happen when it comes to GPS one actually. And then they'll improve like a lot of things, not just on the art, but also on the gameplay and the mechanics and things like that. And then it looks like a very solid game at the end of the day. So yeah, it's and then you thought like, oh no, I don't think they're gonna make it. Like, oh no, they're gonna crash and burn, and then they just like sit in a corner and just like rock themselves back and forth. So,
Yeah.
so and then you see their faces like, oh no. And then after that, like, hey, you know what? Those hours that you put into, and then you actually made it, like it looks really, really good. I mean, all the assets and then the mechanics you have polished, and then all the sleepless nights that they've went through, it's actually quite okay. I'm very impressed with this program. I mean, we're very impressed with this program. So I think it happened like a few semesters. I think like throughout the whole, I mean, every semester we'll see one or two games that just started really really slow, and then they improve like after that, after given advice, after given maybe tips and tricks, and then go to Mr. Boon and like, Mr. Boon, help us please. And then he'll give like a knock on the head, a
Game
sense,
time, and then a crying session, and then
exactly.
and then it just goes
go like, and normally it just goes like that all the way until like the final. So that's great.
really great because these
Yeah.
students basically they started from nothing, and like you mentioned, this is the first time that most of the students will be using the engine. So like you don't even really get much time to kind of muck around and figure yourself out. It's kind of like everyone's been let go from their leash, and it's like, go make something, make art. It's terrifying, but we so.
Yeah, kudos to them, because again, like you said, like it's their first time using the engine, especially for the programmers. You'll hear programmers like, I don't know how to use the engine, like crying, like what is this? But I think like Mr. Boon and Mr. Johann really did a good job on like assuring them that, like, you know what, if you keep following this, you'll be okay. If you keep asking questions, you'll be okay. So yeah.
Great, like that leaves a lot of hope for the upcoming batches. I hope that reassures some of the people watching if they are students going into GPS 1, or if they're like thinking about entering the game dev course itself. And to everybody who's watching and hasn't tried, please feel free to test out our GPS 1 games this semester. There are some really great ones out there. Highly recommend Point and Click, Piranha Culture. Let's go, baby. So Mr. Johann, now I want to ask you about any patterns that you've seen reoccurring during GPS1 with the students. Like any reoccurring struggles or like I guess like good things.
Um, I don't know. A thing that comes to mind for me is that it really depends on the team composition, right? The team that comes together early tends to do decently well throughout. You know, they don't seem they seem to get it. There's someone on the team who will be like, okay, let's double check everything. The lecturers, this is what you want. Let's get it ready on time. And um, it's not very common, but when it can happen, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they get it. Oh, wow, okay, GPS1 is amazing. You know, we're amazing. They get it. Um, and then there's somewhere, you know, it's like we need to sort of remind every week, okay, this is what's happening next. This is what you need to do. Do you know what you need to do? Okay, this is what you need to do. Um, that happens sometimes. There are some teams where it's like there's one person who's like, you know, supercharged. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to carry the whole team. I'm amazing. Let's do this. And you know, they can carry for about a month or two, and then after that, after that, they're done. Oh, help me!
Oh,
What have I done? Yeah, but actually, the good thing is that usually by that time, that energy has infected, that carrying has infected the rest of the team, and they are moving along. It's just they're going with the team's flow rather than just one person's flow, and sometimes that's not exactly the same thing. So that one person feels a bit like, what's going on? Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do anymore. Whereas he's actually got, you know, the ball rolling is just not necessarily in that singular direction that that person was thinking of. So sometimes that happens, and yeah, it's not a bad thing. Exhausting, I think, for that person. Um, yeah. So yeah, you get all sorts. What is interesting is this semester. What stood out for me was that one team actually came to talk to me for like hours, really early on. I think week 2 or something. It's like, oh, you know, what do we do with this idea? Yeah, week 1 or week 2 is really early.
Yeah.
And it was, I think they found it really, really helpful because from then on, the sort of that direction became really clear, and didn't feel like they had issues since then. So that was surprising for me, because yeah, I mean, we're all like, whoa, okay, week 1, week 2 is it's early. But yeah, they've been really smooth ever since then, and so in my mind, I'm like, should we do that like always? I don't know. Something to think about.
I'm just really impressed that there was a team that came to you so early on because some teams only have their existential crisis about direction after the first month. So the fact that this was like a pretty early thing, and I mean, like they talked to you for hours. Was it about anything specific? Like I'm assuming it was a design thing since they're talking to you. But
Yeah, general direction of the game and the idea. My like, if I had to guess, part of the reasoning is because we did end up choosing very niche things. Number one, Peranakan, and that's actually not very well known, not a very well known topic. And then point and click adventures, which is not a very popular genre.
yeah, that was really interesting that you guys went with point and click for the semester because like I don't know, I guess I didn't expect that out of GPS1, you know?
Yeah.
Like that wasn't something that they chose. That was a design restriction, right?
It was one of their choices of games. So for non-student listeners or who haven't experienced it yet, teams are required to pitch 3 ideas based on the restrictions that we've given. Make 3 proposals of games, and we will choose one of them. Sometimes we sort of mix and match. Oh, okay, take the main character from 1 with the music of 2 and the gameplay of 3. So yeah, okay. To answer that question, so normally we don't choose point and click adventures. It happens once a year where people will go point and click adventure, and we will generally go no, because
yeah, I suggested 3 during my time, so
Yeah.
I know you guys don't pick.
Oops, I've forgotten. No, because I don't know whether you remember this, but the main reason is because it becomes very boring for tech.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we've got a point and click thing, we've got item interaction stuff, inventory. Okay,
No.
So it gets boring for them fast. It's also very, very, very design heavy. You don't understand until you're like halfway through, 2/3 through, and then and then you realize, oh crap, we should have done a whole bunch of things, and now everything's all messed up. However, this semester, I try to remember the conversation. It's sort of like, you know what? Both your point and click adventure ideas were pretty good, and why don't we have them both together? Then they can learn of each other as well.
Yeah.
So there's not one team tying up the whole class with, okay, you have to think about this and that, and that. Becomes very specific. Instead, then the whole class benefits from each other's
Like
mistakes.
symbiotic in that sense.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I think this
So
is
you-
like the first time, right? Sorry. This is like the first time like we had two teams actually did the same theme and the same mechanics, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's actually quite interesting to see them working together instead of as one as a classmate rather than individual like group kind of thing. So they learn, like Mr. Johann said, like they learn from each other and they benefit from each other rather than this is my game, no, this is my game kind of thing. So that's actually quite an interesting. It's very an interesting take on this semester actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And early on, I did tell them, okay, in E1 Studio where I was working before this, I did work on a point and click adventure. One of the games got released was point and click, so I was like, come talk to me. And so they did. So I don't know whether it's this particular set of circumstances that led to that, or what lah.
In general as well, other proposals didn't particularly work that well. It was like too much art, or too much programming, or too little of both. So this was like the only proposal that was like, all right. And on the tech side as well, with what was the game name? A Flower That Recalls. They actually had a pretty interesting time. Sorry, not time. They are very clear with that. It wasn't time. It was like memory, recalling
Yeah.
thing where you recall
Oh, like in the
something in the
title.
past. Yeah.
Wow.
So the whole idea was that you're supposed you interact with things that makes you revert back into the past, and you can basically bring things around through your memories, and it will change the state of items and all that to go through puzzles. I think they got stuck with the narrative for a long while, and they eventually kind of like backed away on the technical side from that and came out with this. And with the Pantang, the other GPS1 game, the point and click was mostly for how they interacted with the game. The game was still mostly a horror game, so all the puzzles and how the AI works, it was enough for the tech, or it was enough on the tech side for me to confidently say that they have enough work to do lah.
Yeah, that's true. And also the Flower That Recalls you as Shah in
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a play on the names.
Yeah.
So, but then there was no Shah in Peranakan. There's no the name Shah in Peranakan culture. So like, oh no, now we have to change. It's actually
really did their research though. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Like, I heard that they even did like a trip down to Malacca or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Dedikasi, man. Wow.
Yeah.
But
So, yeah.
Mr. Boon, I also just want to ask, like, were there any patterns that you've seen among the students in all your time doing GPS1?
I think it's harder for me to remember this because each batch of programmers are very different from each other. Uh, you have similar personalities that pop up from time to time, but how they react and how they improve and grow from that is usually quite drastic. To kind of like remember, oh, there's one particular trait that always appears, because it might be like you might have a programmer that's very gung ho for maybe 3 weeks, and then after that they realize, oh, you know what, I can't do this alone, and then they grow from that and become more cooperative. We have many instances of that, but yeah, not there isn't any particular uh, occurrence that I can remember that is like that. I would say that one thing that would pop up is not on the programming side, but generally for the games, is that I think recently a lot of new students are finding it a little difficult to grasp how the GPS class is kind of run. It's quite free flow in the sense, as in we don't handhold them a lot. A lot of how they design and solve problems, that is all part of the process of this class. And I think a lot of students are not particularly that used to this level of freedom
Yeah.
with a class.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. I'll tell you that. It's weird at first.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the more intriguing things that's becoming a norm, that we might figure out how we might sit around and figure out how to deal with that, or how to make that more clear in the first few classes instead of the third week. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, since we're reaching the end of our lovely conversation, which is a great time to remind everybody to please play our GPS1 games available at uowmgames.itch.io. We have 2 GPS1 games this semester, and both of them are fantastic point and click because they don't take that long. Please check them out. Closing words. Do any of you guys have any final words or advice for the GPS1 students moving into GPS2? The jump from 2D to 3D can be very jarring for some, especially the art side, and sometimes also the design side. And I guess do you have any kind of words of wisdom for the students to carry forward with? We'll start with Miss Naps.
For some artists, some of them might not be technical wise, not be that good. So maybe what you could do is take something that you're good at. For example, if you go in 3D, you can do maybe 3D modeling. If you go at texturing, have a pipeline for yourself, I guess. Like I told GPS1 students, for the art guys, pipeline is very important. So you want to do who can do animation, who can do concept art or texturing or what do you call this, or animation. So have that kind of pipeline so that it helps you with flow. I think flow in art is very, very important, because you can't have one guy. You have for example 4 people, so all 4 people does character design. That's not gonna work. So you just lost maybe a certain flow there. So maybe if you have 4 people in the team, figure out who's good in animation, who's good in 3D modeling, who's good in texturing, and maybe it will help with the process, and then have someone to actually oversee your art as well. Like anything for me is also very important, because you're supposed to oversee your teammates progress, and see whether the art style itself is coherent, consistent, and the process itself, it's the process be smoother to actually actually it's just basically to smoothen the process so that you meet a deadline and things like that. And then after that, you just I think focusing on improvements is also very, very important, especially after pre-production and then during production and during post-production. So yeah, that's for I think for art pipeline.
Fine. That's a good tip, actually. Yeah. So, Mr. Johann, any words of wisdom for the GPS1 students moving into GPS2?
Okay, for this batch, yeah, easily. So didn't mean it that way. Fine. Take the experience from this semester, right? Talking to the lecturers early helped a lot. Do that. Don't be daunted by Mr. Jeremy and the whole Yeah, just talk to him. Yeah,
Ah,
go talk to him.
he wins awards.
Got to keep saying that. Yeah, don't be daunted by anything. And ask questions. You know,
Yeah.
ask him and ask for direction, ask for guidance. Uh, the more specific the question, the better, rather than, oh, what do we do now?
Mhm.
But what should we do with this thing? How do we make it more like simulacra? Whatever.
What your game?
Plug.
I want to win awards too. How do I do that? Week 1. Let's go.
Yeah. So yeah, do it. Do it. Go talk to him. Go talk. Yeah, regularly talking to him. I think I'll free time next semester. So if MCO has lifted and we are on campus after
Find
GP,
him.
yeah, buy him lunch. Okay, didn't hear that from you.
Yeah, Mr. Boon, any final advice, I guess?
Just to not forget how far you've come. Because I'm a lecturer that's both in GPS 1 and GPS 2. I tend to see mistakes reoccurring in GPS 2, and I will remind them of what they have done in GPS 1. And yeah, so generally just don't forget the mistakes you've done, how you've moved past them, and don't repeat them again.
Okay, so before we close this off, we actually got a question from somebody watching on Facebook. And yeah, I know, right? We're real streamers now. This is so cool. Okay, so question from Duncan. Hi, Duncan. Do
Hi,
GPS
Duncan.
students get to practice on budgeting during the game development process? I think this one I'll pose it to Mr. Johann specifically.
Okay. Budgeting, if you mean by money, then absolutely not. The closest
Yeah.
we'll have is resource management of the human resources. So in terms of the budgeting or the production questions of money, time, and people, um, yeah, the time is fixed. It's a straight out 13 weeks or however long the semester is. That's unchangeable with unchangeable milestones. And then the people, you just got to work with your team and make that happen. And then there's no practice with the money. Very tricky. Very, very tricky. We would actually love to be able to put that somewhere in our course because the whole managing the budget is a huge thing in game dev. But we can't fire students. So
I mean, have you considered maybe giving them, let's say, a budget of $1,000 in Monopoly money at the beginning of the semester, and then there are certain assets that are available for them to use, but there's a paywall. So it's like, we have a sound effects library that you can access, but you have to pay $10 out of your Monopoly money fund, and then you see who has any money at the end of the semester. I think it's an additional stress, especially for GPS 1, but I mean, it'd be kind of funny. And then if it's close enough to Halloween, then I don't know, one of you can come into class with the monocle and the hat. I don't know. I mean, it's just a suggestion, I got this also from talking to Duncan beforehand. So yeah, it's something you could consider. It is important.
Yes, it is. I think we have to go deeper than just buying assets and all that. It's just how far and how do we do that? And yeah, suggestions would be very welcome.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, Mr. Johann, with your suggestions, harass him at 2 a.m. Like, hey, sir, here's my idea. But you got stuff to do.
yeah, thanks. But I've learned to airplane mode my phone at night now, so yeah. I'll
Hey,
answer
that's
you when I
great.
wake up. Yeah. Can do. I'm happy to receive suggestions and ideas and yeah. Anything.
For folks. Okay, so I think we're just about done then.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sophie.
No
Thanks,
problem.
This
You guys
was
were great.
Thank you.
You were great too,
wonderful.
Sophie.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I tried.
No, but seriously, Sophie, is this amazing idea? Great stuff. Well done. Good job to you, Boon Lim. Good job to you. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Thank you
Still
for
managing.
Yeah, Mr. Boone set it up.
Yay! Thank
We
you,
did it.
and he's
Alright.
fielding all sorts of random questions and remarks. Job, thanks.
All right. I think we'll call it for the stream now. And
Please stop the party.
give us
Yeah,
like 10
my
minutes to set up for the next stream.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
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 Thanks,
Stay
bye.
safe, everyone.
Play the games, give feedback, grill the students. Yay!
HIO.
All right.
All right.